One of the things that mental health really prevents is not only the actual motivation to make human connection, but the ability to consistently to have a consistency with it. Some of the biggest examples that portrayed this have been one of my favorites was Benny and June from the '90s. That was one of Johnny Depp's biggest breakout roles in terms of getting out of that pretty boy mentality. But the whole arcing theme of the story is June being able to make those human connections emotionally with people that she struggled with. And when Sam came along in that journey, she not only started doing that, she also found romance in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, those are some great examples. I'd like to kind of go with a bit of a different example, one that I know is pretty near and dear to both of our hearts. Recently watching and something new coming out in regards to it. Recently, I just finished rewatching The Sopranos, which talk about mental health and how much that had to do with that show. I mean, in fact, at least 50% of the show, Tony's in a room speaking to a psychiatrist. So, like, that just says it right there. And his relation, Tony Soprano, the I guess incumbent mob boss of the series, if you want to call it that, or no, I'm sorry, waste disposal management guy, and you know his relation with family and all the other people and how their mental health was affected as a result. The way they interact with the folks. I mean, it's. You saw a lot of that, and I thought that's what made the show so popular and raw in its reality.
Now, tell me something. Do you find it interesting that now Tony clearly demonstrated a lot of issues pertaining to narcissistic personality disorder, and and again, going back with Dr. Melfi there, I get there were some things she couldn't do because Tony was a criminal. But even so, like being a mental health care official, like there was a lot she did that not only enabled Tony and even made him go even further into the depths of his disorder. But there are some aspects that could also point to Melfi as an antagonist in the series, because there was a lot she did not help Tony with, you know?
And here's the thing with that is, that can be one part that's explored, because a lot of that you could tell was Melfi's fascination with Tony. And like, it's the same fascination we all had with them, watching this person that we knew was deeply flawed. And, you know, I mean, I think she definitely made genuine attempts to help him with his issues, like where she tried to tell him to do things. But the thing is, that's the tragic thing about being a healthcare official is you can tell someone to do something till you're blue in the face. But unless you have some sort of legal way of getting to make sure that they do it, there's really no guarantee they're going to do it.
Well,
and the problem is with that kind of work, we the patient, it's up to us. But we got to do the work, or else it's not going to get done.
But here's another interesting aspect regarding Melfi in the series, because you know that during the series she also saw her own therapist, who himself was kind of being unprofessional with her in very unprofessional in many aspects. But there was actually
the line.
Yeah, especially when inviting her to dinner and all her colleagues kind of banking on her, ragging on her about seeing.
I don't think he was her therapist. That's a thing that therapists, psychiatrists do. It's called peer review. So they basically unload. So they unload stuff about their different clients, but they never mention any details, any names, and they're both bound by HIPAA to not reveal anything outside of that room.
Right. But still going off of Melfi.
But he was still very unprofessional about it, though.
Yes.
I agree.
He definitely put a lot of bias on her, and there was some peer pressure in the professional field in that regard, too. But here was an interesting thing. Here was an interesting thing. There was one dream sequence. You know how that series is with dream sequences. There was one dream sequence of Dr. Melfi's where she's actually like dreaming about having sex with Tony. Now, here's something I took away from that. In a way, it almost sets up, and this is a fan theory on my part, that in some aspects, Melfi's true motivations were not to help Tony. In the aspect of her having sex with Tony in her dream, she's kind of stroking her own ego in the fact that maybe she could be the first person to really help and cure a major criminal like Tony Soprano, who is like very infamous and clearly has many issues of his own, as the series has constantly pointed out. So in that aspect, she was not caring about the patient's overall well-being in the long run, but more how she would look in the long run, especially from a professional standpoint. But that's just my look at it.
Yeah, actually, when you put it that way, I definitely see parts of the series where it alludes to her pride getting in the way of things, but also, I mean, you got to look at the way too that Tony dealt with her at certain points.
Oh yeah, Tony was a fuckface in many aspects.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hey, let's definitely not sugarcoat it. In a lot of ways, Tony was an absolute monster to everyone in his life.
On that subject, also, I don't know if you ever watched this show. BoJack Horseman was the same way. Animated, yes, an animated talking horse. So, like, that's going to turn a lot of people who are more serious off. But BoJack explored the deepest levels of PTSD and depression and how they can get started. And BoJack was funny, but like in the end, he was kind of a cocksucker too, because he really did a big number job on a lot of his relationships, personal and professional. He nearly ended the lives of several coworkers. Actually, did end the lives of several coworkers. He messed up his family life, and you know, the tragedy of the story is that that stuff is it's a family disease that can be passed down from generations, just not in the aspect you would assume a physical condition will.
Yeah, I definitely see the similarities in what you're drawing there in those comparisons. But I also think at the same time, where those lines start to diverge, really start to kind of really part ways when it comes to motivation. Whereas a lot of the times BoJack's motivations were selfish and narcissistic, absolutely. He wasn't always outright willing to hurt people.